Good evening, everyone. It's June 21st at 6:22. I'm sorry for the late start. This is the Town of Woodbridge Board of Police Commissioners regular meeting, as well as Woodbridge Traffic Authority. We're going to begin with the Woodbridge Traffic Authority, and our first item on our agenda are public comments. And I understand there's a member of the public who signed in earlier, Mr. Fokitis. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. If you could please turn on your video so we can see you. And you're welcome.
How do I turn it on?
On the bottom left, there should be mute and then start video. If you click on the start video, that should allow us to see you.
Hold on a second.
If that doesn't work, I can invite you to here. This should work. There should be a pop-up for you that I just sent, and just click on that.
Okay. Can you see me now?
I can, sir, when we can hear you.
Okay, great. Well, good evening, everybody. And,
good evening.
Good to be with you. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak this evening. My name is Aristotle Fokitis. I'm a resident of Woodbridge, and I'm delighted to be here to discuss the situation that I experienced in May 18th. I don't know if anybody has read the letter that I wrote to the captain. I sent a copy to the commissioner. Did you read it, sir?
I did.
Okay. Anybody else read it?
I don't believe so. That was, I know there was initial correspondence sent to the chief. I had a couple of conversations with the chief, and I had reviewed your letter, and I was also part of the discussion on your request regarding the police report. And it was my suggestion for you to consider giving your own statement in your own words, and as you know, inviting you to come and speak to all the commissioners.
Well, great. That's what I've done in the letter that I sent to the chief, and you have a copy of it. So basically, what the situation was is that was an incident. Actually, wasn't even an accident. It was an incident that transpired on May 18th. And just briefly, let me tell you exactly where it is and where I stand on this, because I want to correct the situation, because the policemen that came on at the scene got it wrong. And I just can't believe how could they get it so wrong. So just bear with me if you can, and let me mention something to you here. I was driving north on Amity Road, coming towards Woodbridge, and in front of me was an SUV. And we were passing the Key Bank parking lot on the right, and the SUV in front of me was going into the parking lot. As I was continuing onto the road, there's another SUV coming out of the parking lot into my lane. I pressed on the horn, she wouldn't stop. So finally, I moved a little bit to the left, and she finally stopped, and we both stopped. I stopped, she stopped, nobody hit each other. And then as soon as I said, my God, oh, I'm glad that we didn't hit each other, she just rammed into me and hit my right fender. I don't know what to say. I mean, I'm really at a loss of words that the police that came cannot understand that you cannot make a left turn into oncoming traffic. It's indefensible. And on top of it, it's indefensible for a person to hit another person after we both stopped. No hitting, no nothing, just bang. Now, who does something like that? It's something that is so irresponsible. It is just beyond the scope of understanding. So I discussed this with the police when they finally came. And before that, I want to tell you that the witness told me immediately after this thing happened that, oh, she didn't look on the left, and I saw her hit you. I said, okay, great. I have a witness here. So we're waiting I called the police to make sure that they come, because I felt that this was really a very, very egregious scenario. Has to be stopped. And they came. I discussed it with them. The other lady discussed it with them. But in the meantime, when we were waiting for the police to come by, quote unquote, this witness became very friendly with the perpetrator. So they came back to me that, hey, sorry, but it's your fault. What do you mean it's my fault? Well, she said you went around her. Now, this is so inconceivably a lie. It's impossible for me to go around her. I was in my lane. And I said to the policeman, well, if I went around her, then I would have been broadsided. But I wasn't broadsided. She tipped my very end of my right fender. I don't know what else to say other than the fact that the policeman there really fumbled the ball. I told them exactly what happened. They just wouldn't listen to me. I'm a resident of this town. I deserve some consideration. I don't understand why the police can, listen to one person and not take, my position. And on top of it, I have the evidence. I was in my lane. She made a left turn into incoming traffic. You don't have to be a brilliant surgeon here to figure out that this lady was an elderly lady, failed to see me behind the SUV. And she made a left turn into my lane. And I tried to avoid her as much as I could. And my car, the front of my car tipped over to the other side of the double line. I have an Audi A4, which is a smaller car. She was riding in a big SUV, the gal in front of me. And I have the situation that I went back to the police department. I spoke to the chief. I said, I don't understand why they don't follow what I'm saying. It's inconceivable to me that they can't follow the situation. It's very obvious. You don't make a left turn into incoming traffic. And on top of that, you don't hit somebody after you avoid hitting them. So here we are. I really want to discuss this with you guys. You have some kind of input if you can. To me, I have a $1,500 damage. But on top of the $1,500 damage, is that there's no consideration for me. I'm a resident of this town. And when I discussed this with the police, the sergeant said, well, you went around her. Went around where? That's what I said. Went around where? Why are you telling me this thing? He says, well, he got really hissy. He said, well, if you want me to, I'll give you a ticket and then you could fight it. I said, don't intimidate me. Give me a ticket for what? Being a resident of this town? I'm really beyond words here. Beyond words. And supposedly this sergeant is a traffic, has a commentation for traffic. It's so obvious. She didn't see me. She walked into my lane. She drove into my lane. We finally stopped, no accident, and yet she still hit me. Why? I don't know. Maybe she's impaired. I don't know. It just, to me, I need to discuss this with somebody that has some understanding on it. And correct the report. If you correct the report, then I can get my car fixed. Because it wasn't my fault. I'm not at fault. I didn't do anything wrong. I did not do a thing wrong. I was in my lane. I stopped in my lane. She hit me after we both stopped without a collision. So that's the essence of the whole thing. And, I would refer to the note that I sent to the chief. Please read it. If you want to ask any questions later on, fine. If you want to ask any questions right now, I'd be more than happy to discuss it. But to me, I just felt that it has to be brought out that this is wrong. How could they get it so wrong?
I understand that you're frustrated, but you have to understand that the public comment is not a place to engage in us, going back and forth with questions and answers. I appreciate you're frustrated. I understand the position that you've taken, and I can obviously see your frustration. My only suggestion to you is this may not be a choice that you would like to pursue, but there are conflicts that occur like this in car accidents every day in every city in the country. Some of them are resolved through discussions, some of them are resolved through the legal process. And I realize that you're frustrated with the decision that was made in the field by the officer as well as the sergeant. They have a degree of discretion. They're on the scene. It's not our position to second guess their judgment decisions, which is essentially what you're asking us to do. And it sounds like this is a factual dispute between you and the other parties that may have to be resolved in the court.
Well, I cannot understand why the officers at the scene did not give me any credible, consideration. All they said is that, well, you went around her. That's wrong. It's a lie. I didn't go around her. How could you come to that conclusion?
Mr. Prokides, if I may, I just want to say thank you for coming and presenting your side of the story. I think it's very clear to us there's a clear discrepancy, and we will, be thinking about this as we move forward. But as our chairman said, we really can't adjudicate it right now, but we've heard you, and we get that there's a discrepancy.
Well,
so thank you for coming to tell us that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you hearing me. And I don't know, I've never been involved in an accident over 60 years. So this is mind-boggling. Anyway, thank you again. And if you need anything else, let me know.
You're quite welcome. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Chief or Janice, are there any other items for public comment that you're aware of? I can't hear you, Frank. I'm sorry.
Frank, you have no video.
You have no audio.
Frank, you're muted.
You're muted, Frank.
All right.
There he goes.
Hey, Rob, were you able to hear Janice if there were no other?
No, I could not.
No other public comments.
Okay, thank you. So we have a number of items on our agenda for the traffic. Frank, why don't you just run down the list for us, starting with the JCC?
Okay, the JCC, we received our request from the JCC seeking the traffic authority's permission to hold their 10th annual Murray Linder 5K bagel run on Sunday, September 19th. Start at 9:30, should be over around 10:30. You might recall last year the route was changed because they were milling and paving Pease Road, and they ran a different route up Center Road. This year they're going to return to the traditional regular route down Pease Road to Johnson. They'll be when they start, they'll be exiting the rear lot of the JCC and coming up Shady Lane, and they'll return the same direction. And as usual, we'll partner with the JCC to ensure traffic safety and harmony with the neighbors in the Shady Lane area. We haven't had problems with the route in the past, and don't foresee any again this year. So
we need a motion to approve.
We do.
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
I'm going to tell you verbally, yes. I'm in favor.
Who was the second on that for
Next
Jan?
item is Route 63 Bradley Road safety.
Okay, the DOT began their resurfacing project on the Amity Road recently. As you've probably seen, it's majority of it will be night work from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. And they're anticipating that it'll start paving around July 6th and be done by July 20th, weather permitting. The point I want to make regarding that is that you might recall over the past several years, there have been numerous requests for the installation of an overhead traffic light, signal light at the intersection of Amity and Bradley Roads. At the beginning of this month, a traffic engineer from DOT contacted me and advised that they have repeatedly studied the intersection after receiving several official requests from the town and from the traffic authority. on 2009, 2011, 2016, and then again, the most recent one in 2020. And he reported that again, the review of the traffic volume and the crash data for the intersection still does not warrant their installation of a traffic light. But in conjunction with the resurfacing project that they're going to do, or that they're doing now, they're going to incorporate some new pavement markings and safety enhancements in the area of Amby and Bradley Road. And they're going to paint a crosshatch across the right-hand northbound lane just south of Bradley Road as you approach. So it'll change the configuration there so that there's 2 lanes going northbound will begin just north of the Bradley Road intersection instead of south of it. So they're hoping that'll help alleviate some of the problems there. And they're also looking into the installation of new advanced intersection warning signs in the area as well. So it's just an update on that.
Okay. Next item is Sperry Road.
Sperry Road. So back in April, I received a request from a Dillon Road resident that we keep the unimproved, the unpaved portion of Sperry Road closed permanently to vehicle traffic. And as you know, that runs between Dillon and Morris Road. It's paved at both ends, but it's unpaved in the middle. And it's bordered by a lot of regional water authority property, and as well as Sperry Park. Customarily, the unimproved section is closed and it's gated off by Public Works from November through March, for the winter months. And last year, due to COVID, we had closed it off early to assist in managing a high influx that we had of trespassing and swimming problems up at Sperry Park and the associated health and safety risks. And you might recall back in 2019 at our December 10th Board of Police Commissioners meeting, we discussed the same topic. It came up about closing the unimproved section permanently as well. And at that time, the Sperry Park Commission wasn't not in favor of it, nor was the Regional Water Authority, because it would restrict access to the area for those wishing to use the park and to recreate on the water company property there. So we had a meeting with the traffic committee back on April 12th, and we invited the resident to come, and she participated in that, and we discussed it. Following the meeting, Chris Dickerson did follow up with John Adovich, who chairs the Sperry Park Commission, and the consensus was that, and the concern was expressed that, by shutting the road permanently, it would limit the ability for people to access the park and things of that nature. So,
Chief, just to be clear, so the Water Authority and the Sperry Park, they are not in favor of closing it?
right, Sperry Park Commission and the Water Authority are not in favor of it. And we discussed that again with them, and they're still not in favor. And we discussed it with the resident and told her our stance on it, but I presented to the traffic authority for your consideration on that.
So it's a safety issue. We need to keep it open. It's the recommendation. That's why.
No, the recommendation is that we need to keep it open because it would restrict access for many to the water authority property that are adjacent to that.
That's the recreation part. Plus there's issue about should we need fire or emergency vehicles? So there's a safety and recreation reason? Or is it just recreation?
No safety reason right now. It's more
just recreation
reason.
Okay.
Safety, if we have problems in the summer, COVID related, I think that was just last year. Hopefully we won't have this year.
So it's just recreation.
Correct.
Okay. I mean, as I used to walk all the time right there, I found it very beautiful, but I mean, I can see the person who wants it closed lives there.
Lives on Dillon and frequently.
Yeah.
Area.
Yeah, we take Dillon to Sperry. So I see their point, but it sounds like people have looked into it. And so keeping it open seems to be the dominant theme, which I like, but curious what other police commissioners think.
Well, I have a procedural question. If we're inclined not to approve this, I guess we'd have to have a motion to close it and then just
vote that down.
not approve it. Janice, am I accurate about that?
Believe so.
Because that's the request that's been made of us. So I know it's a little bit awkward that someone would be moving for something that they ultimately may be voting against, but I
Oh,
think
wait, actually, Rob, what if it says request to close unimproved section. What if we decline to honor the request to close the that's a different way of wording it? Maybe it's the same thing. Never mind. Maybe it's the same thing.
Actually, it's different because you're not in the position of making a motion that you're now going to vote against.
Right. That's what I'm aiming for here. Thank you. That's what I was hoping for.
right. I mean, but that may be just procedural quirk
Yeah.
that we may have to follow. I don't know. I think that's how.
Well, I could say I move that we do not agree to close the unimproved section.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that carries unanimously. The next item is the Old Quarry Road, Nettleton Drive.
We received a request from a resident of Nettleton Drive to possibly install 2 additional stop signs at the intersection of Old Quarry Road. Right now, it's if you're not familiar with it, it's a T-type intersection. So there's currently 1 stop sign on Nettleton Drive and no stop signs physically on Old Quarry Road. The resident stated the intersection serves as a bus stop, and additionally, during the pandemic, there was an increase in pedestrian traffic in the area, so he felt that installing 2 additional stop signs on Old Quarry Road and making it a 3-way intersection would help increase safety. He did come to the same traffic committee meeting that I mentioned held in April, and we further discussed his concerns. And he also shared his thought on it with his neighbors in the area. And since then, they had sent numerous emails to both Chris Dickerson, who chairs the traffic committee, and to myself. Residents, some that were for it, and residents who also live in the area that were against making it a 3-way intersection. So to make a long story short, in April, I had a traffic study done regarding the feasibility of the request. And the finding of the traffic study showed that based upon the standards delineated in the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, that stop signs aren't supposed to be used for speed abatement. And they found no excessive traffic volume. There was no traffic crash history found for the area. And the sergeant that did it found there was ample sightline distance for traffic traveling in either direction. So I shared this with the traffic committee at a subsequent meeting that we had, and we were all in agreement pretty much that based on the results of the traffic study, that the intersection should remain as it's currently posted, and the request for installation of additional stop signs be denied at this point. So we would need formal action from the traffic authority on that as well.
Is there a motion to deny the request for an additional sign at Old Quarry and Nettleton Drive?
I'll make a motion to deny the request.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That carries unanimously as well. Next item is Route 243, Millhaven Road, request for children crossing sign.
Well, last month, the first selectman had received a letter from family, actually 3 young children who reside on Tumblebrook Road, and they're looking for a slow children type crossing sign to be located on Route 243, which is Ansonia Road, in the area of the Millhaven intersection. Barnabas is a common shortcut down at the end there for elementary school students and their parents to use for access to Beecher Road School via bicycle and on foot. There were no accidents, thankfully, or incidents that preceded the request, but just like at the high school, there's a lot more people using alternative means to gain access to the school, all the schools. The complication we have with the request is that it falls under, that road falls under the Connecticut DOT jurisdiction because it's a state highway, and that type of a sign, the slow children crossing sign, is no longer approved under the same standards that I mentioned before of the federal manual. So I reached out to Yukon Technological Center for some advice on how to proceed with it. And they suggested that I write a letter to the traffic State Traffic Administration on that. So I will do that, but I just want to keep you in the loop, and I'll let the family know where we're at, and we'll see what the state has to say about that moving forward.
Okay. The next item is 110, 125 Bradley Road, request for a curve sign.
Yep. So earlier this month, Warren Connors of Public Work and myself received a request from the owner of West Rock Materials down at the end of Bradley Road there, concerning a sightline safety issue. If you're not familiar with the area, there's a pretty sharp curve, a blind curve now at that portion of Bradley Road between the area of 110 and 125 or thereabouts. And there's several businesses in the area, along with the Woodbridge Animal Control Facility and some construction companies, and there's a tennis club there. And so between all those, there's a lot of traffic. We actually conducted a traffic study down there back in 2017 due to the increased traffic flow, and we instituted some new line painting and new speed limit signs at that time. The issue currently before us now is that the property at 110 Bradley Road, they planted numerous pine trees along the whole radius of the curve, and they've grown to the point where they hinder the sight line. So oncoming traffic in both directions has a severe impact on their visibility and can't see what they're approaching as they round the curve. And there's a lot of large construction equipment there. So that's where the request, what the request revolves about. I discussed it with Warren from Public Works, and he's going to try to address the site and sight line and tree trimming and removal possibly with the owner. And from the PD side, I recommend that we move ahead and put a curve ahead sign or a little arrow either direction there on the approach in both directions to further enhance awareness in the area. So I just need approval of the board for that, and then I could ask Public Works to take care of that.
Is there a motion to approve the curve sign?
I'll move it.
There's a second? There's a second. Thank you, Dr. Freed. Really quick discussion. That's a really tough turn. I've been there several times. It seems to make sense. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimously. Last item is 2 Bethmore Road, a hidden driveway.
Right. Same thing there. That resident reached out to the first selectman's office regarding a safety issue. And that's in a small, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there's a small triangular area at the beginning of Bethmore Road. There's really actually only one house there, but it's directly off Route 67. Their driveway's on a curve midway between 67 and the short distance where there's a bridge at the river at the Bethany town line. Their concern is that because the driveway is hidden on the curve, they've had several close calls due to just increased traffic over the years, and cars that are approaching are unaware of the driveway. So she's claiming that she has some near collisions, and they're asking for a hidden driveway type advisory sign in the area. I don't see a problem with it. I did go up there and performed a site survey, and there is not much distance in either direction for people to cars passing by to react. So my recommendation would be that we concur with the request and have the installation of a hidden driveway type advisory sign put there as well. So I need a motion from the board for that.
Okay. I certainly believe your observations were sufficient for us to make that decision without us having to do that. Is there a motion to approve the placement of a hidden driveway near 2 Bethmore Road?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
1, 2.
Aye.
Steve? Okay, that's unanimous. Is there a motion to adjourn the Woodbridge Traffic Authority?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Welcome to the Board of Police Commissioners. It is now 6:51 p.m. First item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from a special meeting of May 4th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve? Is
I move that we approve meetings from May 4th.
there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any adjustments, corrections, additions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry,
That's
aye.
unanimously. I'm going to move the public comment section to the end of our agenda. Unless, Janice, at this time, do you know if there's anyone from the public that wish to be heard? I don't see
No.
any requests. Okay.
No, there isn't.
So there was a request to be heard at the end of the meeting. We'll save it for that section. Review of the reports, financial report, activity report.
On the financial report, we're nearing the end of the fiscal year, as you know, and as of last week, we were at 90%. So we remain on track with just a short time to go, and I believe we'll come in within budget. So really not too much to say.
Great. Are there any questions regarding the financial report?
Well, so the dispatcher thing is, unsurprisingly, that's a huge overtime, right? And we'll be solving that soonish, right? We're training and hiring. Didn't we train and hire 1 or 2 new ones?
We trained and hired 1 new one, so that, yeah, a lot of that was incurred prior to.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Are there any other questions regarding the financial report? Is there a motion to approve the financial report?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Yes. Thank you, Steve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's
Aye.
unanimous. Thank you. Chief, if you can address the activity report, please.
Criminal activity report of the most significance. As you know, we investigated a homicide after a body was found on June 8th that morning at the alleged athletic fields in Pease Road playground property. 33-year-old gentleman from West Haven who had been shot multiple times. And the only thing I can really say at this point is that for release is that our investigation is very active and progressing. By our detectives, we're working in close conjunction and with the assistance of detectives from the Connecticut State Police Central District Major Crime.
Are you able to comment on whether he was killed in Woodbridge or killed elsewhere and brought to Woodbridge?
He was killed there.
He was killed at the scene.
Correct. And then just a quick recap on recent criminal activity. No burglaries for the past 2 months. Most recently here and around the state and around the neighboring towns, there's been a lot of thefts of catalytic converters. We had some several weeks ago a few weeks ago on Lunar Drive, businesses overnight, and last week 2 occasions catalytic converters were stolen off vehicles parked overnight at a service station and down the business area. We have several ongoing larceny and fraud cases resulting from internet scams and checks being stolen and altered and fraudulently cashed. A stolen vehicle from Beecher Road that was since recovered in New Haven. In April, we had several larcenies from unlocked vehicles throughout town. That vehicle and the vehicle that they used in that matched the description of the car later used in an armed carjacking in New Haven. And then on April 12th, we had a carjacking by 3 males with a handgun down at the service station down on Route 69. During the past month of May, ISU was able to make arrests and clear several cases that were pending, and that included the suspects involved in that April carjacking, the arrest of the suspect responsible for a burglary occurred at the Subway restaurant back in March, and they served an arrest warrant on the possession of stolen firearms in connection with a motor vehicle accident that occurred on Rimmon Road in April. And they assumed several cases, and we had a bunch of, over the last 2 months, we had quite a large number of requests come in for public fingerprinting and pistol permit applications and background checks. That's a quick recap on the activity.
Chief, can I ask a quick question? We had neighbors throwing a loud party last night. What's the time at which I should call you and say, help me tell the neighbors to knock it off? Is it like 10 p.m. or is there like a time?
There's a reasonable time. There's set times for power equipment and things like that, and we could talk about that offline, and I could give you some guidance on that. Yeah.
Is there any other items on your activity report, Chief?
No, that's all.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the activity report?
So
Motion
moved.
to approve.
Is there a second?
So
Second,
Multiple second. All those in favor of approving the activity report?
Aye.
aye.
It is unanimous. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the report of the chief. There are 3 items.
Yep, 3 items. The first one is working with the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. At no cost, we were able to acquire a solar-powered electronic messaging sign for our region that we'll be housing in town. It'll be down at the Public Works Department. It's a portable unit on a trailer, so it's easy to move. It's like the ones you see at construction sites. So it's readily available for use in town as we see fit for town functions or special events or in the event of an emergency. And then I'll be responsible for coordinating the sharing of that with our surrounding communities should they need it in the event of an emergency or something similar to that. The second thing I wanted to report was, or to discuss was the dispatch center renovations and authorization to move forward with that. So for some time now, we've been discussing the renovation of our dispatch room. And as you know, it's the center of operations for the town, 24/7, 365. It's also the first point of contact for anyone from the public that comes, or for any other agencies that come here to the Woodbridge Police Department. And for many years now, no work of any sort of physical update's been done. And as time has gone on, now we're to the point where it really is deplorable and in dire need of an update. The soundproofing on the walls is literally, it's physically falling off. The carpet's worn and stained. The radio, the table and the console furniture the formica's coming off and it's falling apart. As you probably see when you come in, there's an air conditioner wall unit that's mounted on the wall that's been covered for probably over a decade now with a black plastic bag. So we just completed our multi-million-dollar radio project, and the works, seems to be getting done on a lot of the town buildings all around us. But here at the PD, we keep a lot of our projects continuously get put aside and placed on the back burner. We have discussed it previously, and I think it was back in our March meeting. I was asked to forward a copy of a project summary and rendering of proposed renovations. So that was included in your packets that you received. So I discussed it with the finance director, and there is an initial funding in there that's already put aside for the project, and he's willing to research additional funding source options. But the next step in the process hinges on the board's backing and willingness to move forward with the project. So without that, we're not really going to get much further with it. So I'm looking for the board's support, as these renovations are certainly long overdue, and they would go miles to enhance the dispatcher's job performance and just the overall operational functionality and efficiency of operations up there for years to come.
Frank, what is the proposed cost of the renovations?
The proposed cost looks like it was about $117,000, just over that, 117,248.
And it's my understanding that these funds are at least part, if not all of them, could be from a radio project funding that was previously approved by the town?
Yes, there was $22,000 put aside initially for some cosmetic repairs, and Tony said he could see additional funding to cover the entire cost and alternative methods such as that.
So there's no additional cost. So this is a very easy thing to recommend approving, because it sounds like we really need good dispatchers and happy ones and who can do their job effectively. So decent flooring, electrical, et cetera, sounds pretty useful. So I'd entertain a motion to approve this.
I'll second it.
Is there any further discussion? The only comment I'd like to make is that the wallpaper's hanging off the wall. It's somewhat of an embarrassment. It's a terrible working environment, and this is the face for most of the public. This is the face of our police department. We are invited back to the meeting room, but we walk past that room. Obviously, most of us have walked through and spent some time. It's just in horrible shape. So I think it makes.
There's no argument on that. I think that anybody that's been in that building, comes in and out of that building for years, understands what that place looks like, and that's long overdue.
I just think the comments may be worthwhile for the public that may not go to the police department and don't realize how horrible shape it's in. Is there any other comment, discussion?
Only that I agree, it's disgraceful and needs to be renovated.
All those in favor of the renovations to dispatch?
Aye.
Aye.
Doug, in agreement as well? Steve, I could see your hand. That passes unanimously.
I don't know if you heard me. I did say yes.
I did not hear you. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
The last item is the COVID-19 public meeting update.
So as of now, the governor's executive order regarding virtual public meetings is due to expire at the end of the month. So if it is renewed, the first selectman will ask that boards and commissions discuss amongst themselves whether they wish to meet in person or continue virtually. Those that want to meet in person will be able to do so beginning July 1st. If the order is not renewed, then all meetings will be held in person as of July 1st. Masks and social distancing will be required, and the meetings will be held in rooms that allow for social distancing and proper ventilation. So Town Hall will be forwarding some additional guidance as we get closer to July 1st. Our next meeting is scheduled for July 19th, so I'll keep you posted and we'll touch base after the end of the month and we'll see where the governor goes with the executive order.
Can I just impose upon commissioners, hypothetically, if the governor extends the order, what their position would be? I personally would prefer not to meet in person if we're required to wear masks. I think that's somewhat difficult, but I'm curious what everyone else thinks.
I'm all in favor of maskless meeting when we're all vaccinated and we're all allowed. Meeting with masks, like, ew, we can't even eat, people. Let's meet when we can have dinner again.
That's right. I agree.
Unfortunately, going to court, I have done it, and it's horrible. It's just not. For a public forum like this, it's just a bad idea. I mean, all right. Dr. Sear, Steve, do you thought about that? What makes sense?
I agree.
Okay.
I agree. When we meet without masks, personally, I would be in favor of that, but not until that point.
So, Frank, that's extended. That's unanimous thought that we all would choose to do that. Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, that's all I have.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda are the personnel matters, the letter of recognition and extended absence.
They need to accept the chief's report.
Rob, you just need a motion to accept the chief's report.
So would we be double voting, I guess, on, should we just vote to?
A motion to accept the chief's report.
No, I understand that, but we already voted on the dispatch, which is part of your report. All right, whatever. Is there?
I move we accept the chief's report.
Second.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Personal matters, letters of recognition, extended absence.
Yep. Recently, I issued letters of recognition to Officer Rodriguez Perez, Officer Capozzo, Sergeant Capiello, Detective Luzzi, for their collective efforts and actions that led to their arrest and conviction of a suspect who pled guilty recently in U.S. federal court to possession of a firearm and furtherance of a drug trafficking crime. And that incident stems from a motor vehicle accident on the Litchfield Turnpike near Landon Street when the suspect fled the scene. Working together, these officers recovered a loaded handgun with an extended ammunition magazine, along with a quantity of crack cocaine, heroin, and fentanyl that was packaged for sale. Then working further with the FBI and the New Haven Police Department, they were able to identify the suspect who did finally pled guilty and currently remains incarcerated pending his upcoming sentencing. So kudos to them all for a job well done. And the other topic I had under personnel was the extended absence. Just want to let the board know that we have a supervisor who's currently out of work this month on an extended absence due to a surgical procedure. So he will be out for a week on that. And then he'll be has vacation following that. So we'll be short-staffed supervisory for a good portion of June. And that's all under personnel.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is the executive session. Is there a motion to move to executive session?
I'll move.
Second.
For this executive session, we would invite the chief and Janice.